welcome back to Silicon Sounds, audio for the rest of us. Today I have the distinct pleasure of reviewing the Air Acoustics Silver Angel SPA High-End Ultra Year of the Snake Edition. That's a mouthful. I won't be calling it that again, maybe at the end. I'd like to entitle this review as Energetic Songstress. Air Acoustics is a company that from the outside seems to have just jumped into the scene out of nowhere, but nothing could be further from the truth. They are the reimagined and rebranded company known as TFZ, who have a history of producing quality earphones. Presently, they offer not only 3 different lines of iems, but various cables and accessories as well under the Air Acoustics moniker. The present product line, and work with me here, it's a lot of information coming down the pipe now. The present IEM product line includes the SPA, STA, and PHX series of earphones. The latter, the PHX, designated as a stage IEM, I guess marketed towards more professional applications. There are 7 IEMs that make up the SPA lineup and 5 that are included in the STA releases. That's 12 total. There are some major and not so major differences between lines, including a dual driver layout. I believe it's a 10 millimeter mated with a 6 millimeter dynamic in the STA lineup, and the use of a single dynamic driver, a larger driver, but single, in the SPA earphones. All of the SPA IEMs use a single 11.4 millimeter dynamic driver, but as you move up in the line, the driver material is actually different, even though they're same size. What we have here is the Pro models employ a graphene diaphragm, while the high-end models are furnished with what Air Acoustics calls a titanium gold ball diaphragm. On top of that, it gets even more complex. The shell materials change depending on how high up you go in the line. Shell materials can vary from resin to zinc alloy up to aviation grade aluminum, depending on how high up you go in each line. If all of this seems confusing, in my honest opinion, it is, and it's more than it should be. This is my one major criticism of these IEM releases. There are just too many in the product line released at once for most consumers to make an informed purchase decision unless they really dig in for information, which means getting really deep into the Air Acoustics website. To add to all this, the tunings are different. Even though they may look the same, they may have the same material, the tunings are different. And don't be mistaken about it. Most of them use the same type of shell, just a different material. But there is a redeeming thing here. Through all of this model, the SPA High-End Ultra, which is the only one I've listened to, is a wonderful sounding IEM. It is an IEM that the more I listen to, the greater my involvement with the music, and that's what it's all about. Here we have an IEM rife with details, yet still sounding musical and not clinical. An IEM with bass that initially put me off, but with continued listening, I came to appreciate how greatly it was presented. Tuning-wise, we have a more neutral presentation with some moderate upper frequency, upward tilt. Some might even call it bright neutral, but here's where things kind of get complicated. It's a chameleon. This IEM, if you can get a focus, it's hard, it's so shiny, and it's got good weight. I believe there's zinc alloy shells. This IEM is a chameleon, and occasionally had me questioning my tuning description as it would mold itself to whatever music it was playing. The SPA High-End Ultra is fairly easy to drive, but it is source and tip sensitive. At $190, this IEM can be quite resolving, and as such, driving it from a competent source is a must, and you can tell the difference depending on the quality of that source. Also, tips. I recommend pairing it with a slightly warmer yet revealing source to get the best performance. As for tips, I tried a few. I have a container filled with about 25 I should say, let me not over exaggerate, different types of tips. And strangely enough for this one, I went with the stock tips that came with it. They're a short barrel, wide board tip, and they worked surprisingly good. I almost never use stock tips on IEMs that I listen to, but this is one of the rarities with this particular model. So let's talk about specs. The drive unit, is a single dynamic 11.4 millimeter titanium gold ball with a silicon crystal edge, double-sided composite diaphragm, double magnetic circuit, double chamber dynamic coil unit. A lot of words, but how does it sound? Sensitivity is 110 decibels, impedance is 26 ohms, frequency range 5 to 40 kilohertz. It comes with a cable, a 0.78 millimeter. We can see, hopefully, again with the shininess, you can see the 2-pin 0.78 millimeter entry for receptacle for the cables. Very nice cable, by the way, with one caveat. Dual pin oxygen-free copper, so OFC copper, silver plated. So that's good. Build and fit. The Air Acoustics Silver Angel SPA High-End Ultra is a beautiful IEM. Beautifully finished. Has company branding on the caps. We see the year of the snake here. And over here we have the Air Acoustics logo. Bling, bling, bling. Quite a beautiful IEM. And writing on the shells themselves. Very difficult to see here. But if you can, Silver Angel right there. And let me see if I could pull this one up. SPA right there. Attention to detail in how these are manufactured is just incredible. Incredible. On the shells themselves, the earphone really is a quality product. What looks like a vent is seen on the rear. That I don't think is just decoration. Also, if I look very carefully, there is another vent hole right there. Where my fingernail is right there, there's another vent hole. That's seen. So it is a vented design. Let's talk a little bit about the accessories that it came with. It comes in this good size, beautiful case. Nice motif, Silver Angel. Opening it up, we have the cable. The cable is beautiful. The haptics are lovely. It seems like it's a cable that's not going to kink right away. The only issue I have is the only option I was given was a 3.5 millimeter single-ended, and I would love to have a 4.4 millimeter single-ended cable end, or even better, at least an option for one, even better, one that can be converted. But still, I got to say that this is a great-looking cable. So let's continue. Let's talk about the sound. But before I get to that, overall, the retail presentation of this thing is top-notch for the price. Build quality is exemplary. Fit is very good. They do have somewhat of a pronounced nozzle, which is kind of wide, but the ergonomic design of the shell means a very comfortable fit. I had an exceptionally comfortable fit here. They've done a stand-up job with quality manufacturing and the presentation of the product. From retail to the iems themselves, everything screams quality. But let's get into how it sounds. Bass. Bass goes deep, is well controlled, and with respect to energy, reflects what's in the track rather than being overemphasized. This is the chameleon aspect in all parts of the frequency range, particularly the bass. There are some tracks, I listened to some light jazz tracks, and it came off as light sounding and jazzy. And then I put on some heavy duty drum and bass, and I was like, wow, these things can play back bass when the track calls for it. They're not iems that will overemphasize or embellish sound. They will play back as indicated by the track. And if you're like me, who loves that, who loves sound that is clean and representative of what's in the recording, I think that's fantastic. The low end is snappy with decent slam and overall natural sound playback. This versatile bass presentation is well suited to acoustic music, house music, or really anything you throw at it. I threw on a track by Intelligent Hoodlum, and the track is called Intelligent Hoodlum by a drum and bass outfit called Mannix. And when that bass drop hit, these sounded wonderful, wonderful. On Angel by Massive Attack, the driving bass line was there as it should be, with present texturing and power, yet with a great level of control. It didn't sound splashy. It didn't sound like watery or woolly. it sounded quite good. Likewise, Inertia Creeps, also by Massive Attack, where the bass was present with power yet not overshadowing the rest of the track. The bass stays where it has to be as a foundation for the rest of the music. Ikucini by Cairo, very competent, very good house music creator from Africa. Wonderful house track with a thick thumping bass line. The SPA High-End Ultra was more than up to the task with a nice and meaty playback. Again, chameleon. Love it. I then moved to He's a Karaoke by Eden Atwood, a DSD file furnished by one of the members of my Canadian review group. Shout out to Canuck Audioholics review group here in Canada. I was pleased to hear a rich texture of the double bass coming through clearly. Now, on the Journey Home by Chris, another DSD, high-quality DSD file I have, this is where the SPA and High-End Ultra again represented itself well with beautiful clarity in the low end. I was really taken back with how the SPA High-End Ultra rendered the bass in No Jive by DFAZ, another group, another DSD high-quality file I have, with such a natural and organic playback. The low end did not bleed into the mid-range as the mid-bass stayed in its place. This is not a bass at IEM. Don't get that fooled, but one which a listener like myself who values musicality over everything else will appreciate very much. Let's have some clarity, folks. Clarity incoming. The SPA High-End Ultra does not lack bass. Let me be clear on that it has ample power when called for in the track. A natural delivery and is incredibly versatile. The low end has good pacing combined with more organic delivery that I find quite alluring. With respect to speed, it's definitely there. This is a quick, tuneful bass. I've heard faster. It is proficient, though not as fast as some balanced armature-based earphones I've heard before, but those are balanced armatures. But with respect to other earphones or iems in this price range, definitely the SPA High-End Ultra does not really give any quarter. It does quite well. So well done. Mid-range. The SPA High-End Ultra has a mid-range that is clean and expressive with a good mix of micro and macro details. The mid-range is more lively than laid back, but in a very good way. All too often, when people talk about lively playback, let's get a little look, hopefully it will focus. Look at the finish on that. Whoever does their CNC, whoever does, notice that the vent is like this, and when you look at the back, the vent is identical. Whoever does this machining, beautiful work. Let's continue. All too often, a lively mid-range usually means harshness with some kind of overemphasis, but with the SPA High-End Ultra, this is definitely not the case. Vocals, both male and female, are more immediate than recessed with a level of clarity that is noteworthy. The mid-range is open and uncluttered sounding with an organic delivery. At times, I found myself hearing details in familiar tracks that had been hidden from my ears compared to the last few IEMs I had just been listening to over the last, let's say, couple months. Another thing I found myself doing unconsciously was tapping my feet and nodding my head to the music. This IEM really pulled me into the music, and that was much appreciated. Layering and separation were notable. The SPA High-End Ultra never sounding confined with that dreaded wall of sound effect, where music just sounds like it's two-dimensional because it's so busy. Listening to Beautiful Lie by Vic Lavender was refreshing, as each element in this hyper-busy track could be clearly heard in its own space and maintaining its own place. Transients were handled admirably with fast attack and natural fall-off. Timbre was also good. Listening to Our Relationship by DFAZ, the sonics are natural with that additional feeling that you are hearing with great clarity, absolutely everything. That's one thing that this does quite well. You don't feel like you're missing anything in the track. There's no veil covering it. I'm not going to call names, but I've listened to, had the opportunity to listen to quite a number of IEMs, both above and below this price range. And I'm very particular when it comes to veil over the music. I can identify it almost immediately. This doesn't have that. There's a well-managed Pinagain with no harshness noted. The SPA High-End Ultra is not the most forgiving, though, IM with respect to poor recordings. It doesn't make them unlistenable, but you will know that the recording is slightly lesser quality. It's not the most unforgiving I have listened to, so you can still listen to these recordings and enjoy them. But it can be resolving, which does make well-recorded music even more enjoyable. Poorly recorded tracks can still sound fine, but the resolving nature of the High-End Ultra really makes well-recorded music a joy to listen to. Why? Because you feel like you're hearing everything. There's nothing left out. I found that the High-End Ultra's mid-range made it easy for me to be pulled into the music. This is high praise in my honest opinion. It has a mid-range, like the bass, suited to any genre of music I threw at it, offering an open window into the music. Very well done. Treble. The treble is fairly well extended. It is extended. With ample air and sparkle, listening to Vanston Place 12 a.m. by Ronnie Jordan, the treble playback had a nice crispness to it with natural but not overdone shimmer. The treble here really opened up the expansiveness of the track and made it feel wider and more alive with depth, and was a joy to listen to. There's a level of refinement here that, while being bested by the Aurelius Cazali, which, by the way, cost about 4.5 times the price, 5 times the price, sorry, of the SPN High-End Ultra, by the way. Still, it was distinguished to these ears of this opinionated music lover's ears. As with the rest of the frequency range, an admirable level of control and detail retrieval was experienced. I only throw in the comparison with the Cazali because I just listened to it. Probably one of the best IMs I've ever heard. With a treble and mid-range, that is just unreal. While the SPA High-End Ultra may not match it one for one, it does exceptionally well and allows me to disappear in the music, and that's what it's really all about. I'm not comparing, saying it's better. It's not, but it gets there in terms of involvement, which to me is critically important. So, with respect to soundstage and imaging, the SPN High-End Ultra has on offer a moderately large soundstage with ample space around the instruments. Single dynamic drivers, equipped IEMs, I should say, usually have a leg up when it comes to cohesiveness. There's no handoff to 2 or 3 different drivers using different tech. No need really for a crossover unless you have one to manage the sound. That's another thing altogether, another video. And in this regard, this IM does not disappoint. Imaging has solid with lateral placement beyond the ears, with a nice sense of depth and height as well. Layering within that soundstage is nicely done and contributed to open sounding sonics. Remember at the beginning of this review, I mentioned pairing, finding that synergy. This IM will sound best when you spend some time finding the synergy with the proper tips. Definitely the source, and some people would even say cable, but for me, the source made a massive difference with respect to its imaging capabilities and really brought out the best. Also, again, make sure the source is slightly warm. If that's what you want, that's my preference. It may not be yours. So, in conclusion, to these opinionated music lovers' ears, the SPA High-End Ultra is a fantastic IEM. When listening to them, I found a few interesting things that contributed to winning me over. Firstly, I found myself eagerly listening to whole albums where usually I would just cherry pick 1 or 2 tracks for my critical listening. This is something I haven't done or haven't found happen to me. I can't say in a very long time, because Zaylee actually had me doing this, but this one really pushed the limit. I would play Eden Atwood. I usually use 1 or 2 tracks off of her album, DSD album, but now I listen to the whole thing. DFAS, I rarely listen to them. Now I listen to them to the point where I use them for my critical listening. This IM just allowed me to enjoy albums from front to back. I also found myself unconsciously tapping or moving my feet to the music. Time would also pass very quickly, leading to long listening sessions and sometimes actually losing sleep time because I was so into the music. This just points to how easily the SPA High-End Ultra, I should say the Air Acoustics Silver Angel, SPA High-End Ultra allowed me to get lost into the music. As part of an extensive, in my opinion, too extensive, lineup of quality iems for Air Acoustic, the SPA High-End Ultra stands out in its price range and above as a true gem of a performer which suits my listening preferences very well. I think many people who enjoy or look for musicality in an IEM, they don't want something that's laid back or boring. This thing is not. It's got some vibrancy to it, some energy, but still exceptionally musical. With fantastic looks and build quality combined with an immersive and detailed sound, the Air Acoustics SPA High-End Ultra is a musical and expressive beast. It gets a definite recommendation. I want to thank you very much for watching this video. Continue to support the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.